back to another episode of Fire Your Boss with Suzanne Lee. Today I'm joined by Heidi Prado. She was a full-time physical therapist turned full-time real estate investor. As we talk through her story, we talked about stuff that I never talked with anybody before on this podcast. We talked about health benefits, and I often hear so many people saying that I don't want to leave my job because I don't know what to do with health benefits. So Heidi shared how she overcame that obstacle of health benefits. And we also talked about how to network with people. Both of us being introverted, we both learned to become good at networking. And so I'm so excited to share her perspective of how she learned this skill for herself. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy my podcast episode with Heidi Prado. So welcome, Heidi.
Thank you.
How do I say your last name?
Prado.
Prado. We have Heidi Prado today with us. We met at a real estate meetup locally here in Savannah.
Yes.
And we've been pretty much seeing each other since at the meetups where we've known each other for a little over a year, I think, or more than that. Yeah. When you were looking for some investment properties and I was still in the real estate space, that's how we kind of got to connect. But we really got to connect at our last breakfast at the real estate meetup. And that's when I really got to know about your story, that you actually left your own 9-to-5 job before to be in real estate full time. So I'm like, I have to get Heidi on the podcast. So thank you for joining us today, Heidi.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit your story, where you were before and what you're doing now.
Sure. Well, by trade, I'm a physical therapist and became a physical therapist in 1997. So I worked in that field for over 20 years, the last 20 of which I worked for a local hospital, and at the end of my career was in administration, working as a director. It was a great career, very fulfilling, but from the moment I had my children, I always had the pull of wanting the time freedom and work commitments too. So there was always an internal struggle.
Yeah, and when did that struggle start to happen?
It was pretty much when my first child was born, when my son was born 20 years ago.
Yeah. Did his birth coming, did that make you realize, hey, I want more time with him? Or
yeah, I mean, I think our society makes us feel like we should be able to do it all. Work, balance a career and your home life and being a parent. But the first time your little baby is sick and you realize you're leaving your boss in a bind, but you're also having to leave a sick child, it's a real struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and my firstborn son was sick from birth and had to have surgery when he was about 8 weeks old. So the realization that it's very hard to balance the two.
Yeah. So when that happened, when you had surgery, did you have to? I'm sure you had to take time off work.
Yes, I had gone back to work and within 3 days had to come back out for his surgery. Yeah. So I did. I managed. I had a good career and I managed pretty well. But as time went by, I started to get the real estate bug and wanted to get into the field. But I was pretty immersed in my career. It wasn't just a job. So the struggle then became the job was part of my identity and also not wanting to leave my coworkers and my boss in a bind. I'm a very loyal person and I didn't want to leave them. And there's always fear to leaving and making a big change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think the thing that finally pushed me, besides having a very supportive spouse, we worked really hard and put ourselves in a financial position where we had a little bit of a cushion, was the fact that my son only had a few years left in high school. And if I was going to make this change, I needed to make the change so I actually did have time to spend with him in those last couple of years of high school and all the things that they do before they launch out of the nest. And I felt that was parenting in general is critical time, but that was, to me, it felt like critical time. So that's what finally pushed me to make the change.
So it sounds like when your son was born, that's when you started to hear, hey, I want something more for myself, to have that time freedom.
And then when your son got to finally high school, the last few years, you're like, hey, I really want to take control of that time with him the last few years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I never didn't want to work. I enjoy working. I enjoy creating things and building things. And I like to have that example for my children. But I wanted the freedom to choose when I worked and how I worked. And for me, real estate was that route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So were you, while your son was still in high school, did you already start working in real estate before you left the job?
I started educating myself probably 2 years before I left.
Mm-hmm.
So I left my W-2 in October of 21.
Mm.
But for 2 years before that, I started doing education and listening to podcasts, Bigger Pockets, and reading books, and really praying about making that change to make sure it was the right decision for my family.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Right.
only for me, but for my family.
Yeah.
And I finally, about 3 months before I left my job, I felt like I got a very clear answer from God that this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So
Tell us a little bit more about that. What did that sound like for you?
I'm spiritual and I pray a lot, but I finally felt a peace about the decision, and that to me was the answer.
Yeah.
That's how I determined that was an answer from God, that I had a peace in my heart, and
Yeah.
so, and that has stuck through me, because let me tell you, there's times when you want to burn the boats, but there's times you want to jump back in the boat and have that security of the steady paycheck and the benefits and whatnot. But when I remember that I got that clear answer, it reminds me that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Did you hear the back and forth before you left the job?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think most of that's fear, Suzanne. It's just fear of change. It's fear of the unknown. Worst case scenario, though, I could have gone back to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it may have looked different,
Mm-hmm.
but I could have gone back to a W-2. I mean, I felt like if I would have stayed, I would have always had the regret of not at least trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was that one of the things that pushed you forward? It's like, did you consider that before you left? It's like, worst case scenario, can always go back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, even though I had worked my way up into leadership, I may have not been able to go back to that exact position,
Mm-hmm.
but I go back to a similar position and work my way into a position. So there's nothing's permanent.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. You mentioned something interesting. I think we all would have considered that, the benefits, the health benefits.
Oh, yeah.
How did you work that out for yourself?
We had to just go into the exchange and find benefits health benefits through the exchange. But I mean, they're out there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
yeah.
Healthcare is not cheap, but we've done well. So
yeah. When you say exchange, is that like a self-employed kind of health benefits?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your husband, did he also leave
He's
his job?
self-employed as well.
Okay.
So he's been self-employed for 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
So I was bringing home the benefits.
Okay.
So
nice. Yeah. Okay. So he would have been already. Was he already on the?
He was on my.
Okay.
He was on my benefits.
Okay. Right. Okay. So you guys both decided, okay, there's no more W-2 to carry the benefits anymore, so you just had to decide to carry the exchange benefits.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So the reason I asked you that, because I hear a lot of people who are saying, hey, I want to stay in this job because I don't know what's going to happen with my benefits, and that is a consideration factor for them. But it sounds like you, well, because of your drive to want to spend those years with your son and having that freedom for yourself, then the benefits were like just a secondary thing that you have to just work out, right?
Right. It's weighing the pros and the cons.
Right.
And to me, the pros outweighed the cons.
Right.
And I mean, we have health coverage,
Exactly.
you know, and they're comparable to, the cost is comparable to where I was in my job. So
perfect. That's perfect.
Right. So I don't think anyone should use that as the barrier to trying to leave their job if that's what they really felt pulled to do.
Yeah, that's awesome that you share that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a little bit about the fears that you had felt. How did you overcome those fears for yourself before you left?
A lot of mindset work, right? I think for me, the clear answer for God and stepping out in faith was the main factor that helped me overcome fear. But it's also, like I said, realizing that I would always regret not trying, and just kind of looking into the future about what my future would look like if I didn't make the move. So it was just a lot of forward thinking.
Yeah. What was the vision that you saw that pulled you forward?
Well, the vision that I saw not leaving my job was doing the same thing, watching all three of my kids go off to college and missing out on some critical moments. So that was a little bit of a negative vision, but there was also the positive vision of creating a business, the challenge of creating a business, and it's been amazing, to be quite honest.
Right.
It's coming, the dream actually is coming true, so it's been amazing.
Do you think that, looking back, would you have expected to have even to be able to experience all that you've experienced so far after leaving the job?
No, I mean, I feel like what I'm experiencing now, really, to be quite honest, the peace and joy that I have right now, I don't think I could have even fathomed it. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm at probably one of the happiest points in my life, despite going through big transitions with my kids growing up and going off to college and whatnot. That's a difficult change, but have that piece of having some control over your time and your future. It's hard to describe.
Yeah. How do you feel like right now is being able to enjoy? What do you enjoy the most actually now?
In addition to the time freedom, right now I'm really enjoying the challenge of building my business. To me, it's quite the adventure.
Yeah.
I mean, every day is an adventure. Every day is different. As a real estate investor, and I primarily do fix and flips. The things I see, I would have never seen them in my 9 to 5.
What are those obstacles?
The things I see.
Yeah.
I mean, just the going into some crazy housing situations, and I've been forced to network like I never had to do. Believe it or not, even in leadership, I networked within my organization, but I've been forced to network outside, and I've met some amazing people. I just love to see my learning curve is very steep, and for me, I just have always needed to be challenged.
Yeah. The networking piece is an interesting topic too, because I was in engineering, wasn't a very outspoken person, and it was always the people that I saw, these are the people that I'm comfortable working with. How did you overcome your own fears of having to step out there to meet new people?
Well, I've had mentors that have told me how important it is to network, and I, like you, that's not my nature. I'm introverted, so I have to push myself to do that. But almost every single event I go to, I make a pretty critical connection that leads to real estate deals, and that will reinforce the behavior for sure. That, I mean, almost every single time I meet someone that either connects me with someone else or connects me. No, I've just connected with a lot of people, like-minded people who are driven and just interesting, good-hearted people. And a lot of people who are like me who just want to help others, even in acquiring real estate, but helping people out of hard situations and help each other out in business. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Do you recall the first time you went to a networking event?
Yes, I think so. And I had to push myself way outside the norm and just walk up to a group of people because I didn't know anyone. And just walk up to a group of 3 people, I think, and say, "Hi, I'm Heidi. Can I just join in on your conversation?" Which is definitely not something I think I would have done even a few years earlier than that.
Yeah.
So, and my husband and I went to something outside of networking, and he's like, wow, you've gotten really good at mingling. So I think it's a learned skill. I mean, I think they had to learn how to network.
Yeah.
But and again, I love that. I love growing and stretching.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And you said a good point, because networking is something that sounds like it's not natural for both of us, at least when we were growing up. But it's definitely a skill that I also had to learn, and you also learned for yourself. And then just the more that you do it, though, yes, it doesn't. You may not feel comfortable the first time you do it. You may feel awkward. It's like, oh, why did I just say that, right? It's like, why did I sound like that?
Right.
So then the second time, say, okay, then you just practice a little bit more, and you pick up skills from other people. You kind of, I hallucinate that you may be listening to people are talking, and say, oh, that's pretty cool how he said that, or that's pretty cool how they are sharing themselves, and that's how I learned my own learning curve of the networking skill.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And even fight the urge to, once you've gone to a couple events and you know people in the room, just sticking to that person's side the whole time. You want to talk to your friends, your new friends, but you also have to force yourself to make new friends and sit by people you don't know. And now I changed my mindset to the point that I want to learn about people I don't know. People are interesting.
Right.
And
Yeah.
just kind of pushing that.
Right.
That fear.
Yeah.
Getting
What
out
was
there.
your belief before about meeting new people?
I'm sure there's a lot of insecurity. Like, I don't have anything to offer them. Why would they be interested in talking to me? Fear that I would stumble and be awkward in the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are the new beliefs now? You mentioned one that people are actually interesting.
People are interested. They are. And people enjoy talking about themselves just by nature. It's our nature. I mean, we know ourselves. So that's something we can talk about. So I always feel a lot more comfortable if I can go up to someone and ask them about themselves. And I feel pretty confident that we could have a conversation.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned a little earlier about not the fears, but did you have any business background before you left your W-2?
I did. I have a business degree, and the latter part of my career was in leadership. I was a director, so thankfully for both of those experiences, I did learn business skills,
Right.
and I do kind of enjoy some of the back office parts of the job. But what's exciting is I've learned the parts of the job that I don't like at all, which kind of goes back to some of my personality. I really don't like the cold calling or the acquisitions. And I have kind of worked partnerships around my business where I can do where my strengths lie, and then find someone else who loves to do that. I mean, that is their wheelhouse.
Right.
But in the few short years that I've been doing this, it's just been fun to kind of whittle away at the things that you think you should do, or how it should be done, and whittle it down to how you want to do it and what brings you the most joy and the most pleasure day by day. Not that, I mean, there's always hardships and hard things to deal with in any career, but it's been fun to kind of chip away at all the information that comes in and just kind of make it your own.
Right.
And make it work the way
Yeah.
that it works for you.
Yeah. Do you figure out which part of the business you like versus which part you don't?
Well, the things that I avoided, I think there's a book called Swallow the Toad or Swallow the Frog, whatever, where you're supposed to do the things that you don't like to do first thing in the morning or first thing in part of the day. And there are things that I just would push off, and I'm like, oh, I really don't want to return that phone call to that lead. It became very clear that this is just, I could learn how to be good at this.
Right.
And there are some things I had to learn to be good at, like we just talked about with networking. But when there's other people that are really good at that, it's the who, not how. Rather than me learning how to do it, well, and I find the who that can do that. So
Yeah.
for sure.
So, yeah, those things that I would put off
Yeah.
to the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the month, it became clear that I did not want to do those tasks.
That's a good clue. If you're pushing it off, then
Right?
that means you don't enjoy it.
Right. I'm generally not a procrastinator, so that's a clear message.
It's such a good point because so oftentimes we hear about these are things that you don't enjoy or push through, but it's why, right?
Right.
It's if you're listening in really to yourself, that clue of you keep on pushing it off. Okay, well, let's really hone into it because you're in this business for a reason, so you can really get to choose which part you want to keep for yourself. And so I think it's even better actually to find people who do enjoy that piece and who are really good at it so that they can even excel even more than maybe what you can even do to yourself by pushing yourself so hard.
Right. I mean, I always feel like I was holding my business back by trying to do the things that I was not doing well. And you're right. And I believe you and I are similar in that we like to push ourselves and stretch ourselves and volunteering to speak when we're not comfortable or whatever for personal growth. But then it's sometimes pushing yourself to do things that you're putting a square peg in a round hole.
Right.
That may not be the place to put a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So when ultimately it's probably holding your business back.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel any of that where you, back in your W-2 job, how much of now the joy that you feel in this business versus the joy that you felt back then? Do you feel like it was just not a good fit or?
I had a lot of parts of the job that were satisfying, but I'd say I have a lot more parts of the job that are satisfying now, along with the general idea that I control my time.
Yeah.
So that just brings me a lot more peace.
Yeah, for sure. What does your husband say after you left the job? Because he was already self-employed back then.
He was. And he encouraged it. He's very supportive. And he encouraged it. Now, did our finances change? At first, yeah. Because, it's taken me a while to build my business up. But I think we both have accepted that. I mean, we've always been fine, but it just things changed a little bit. He's very supportive and encouraging, though. He admires the things that I've done. We are very careful because we both work out of the home, and so I see how he does his business, and he sees how I do my business, and we both would do each other's business differently. But we've been very careful and that took a little time for us to realize that we needed to kind of stay in our own lanes. We do ask each other for advice, and that's when it's a good time for us to help each other out. But it took a little time for us to realize where we shouldn't step over the boundaries.
Wow. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was another learning curve, another growth opportunity.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Even in the relationship after you made that decision for your own career.
Yeah, sure. And it kind of helped. It's brought us a little bit closer because I've seen what an amazing business he's built. He's been at it for 12, 13 years, and I've only been at it for 2 years. But to see what he's been able to do really helps me admire what he's done. And then he's seen a different side of me as well. So.
Do you see yourself understanding him in a better way now that you're in business on your own?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And just realizing he and I have different skill sets. And he's a visionary. He has a real genius for seeing a need and building it. And I'm more of sometimes we call it an enabler, but just enabling people to do their job. And so we go at our work a little bit different. But I have none of what he has, and he has very little of what I have, so we can appreciate each other's skill sets.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's a good point because oftentimes with the backgrounds that we come in with, and you have a business degree, you have leadership experience coming in, and you yourself as an enabler, that's your skill and your gift in coming in as a business owner. But as business owners, we pretty much have all the hats, right? We're the IT, we're the marketing, we're sales, like we're HR and everything, right? And we're the project manager. And it sounds like he
came in his own business from another perspective as a visionary, but then that's when we're able to find, okay, this is where my strengths are, and then I need to find somebody else to complement on my weaknesses,
Right.
and really build out that to cover each of the it goes back to the point where you said, okay, these are the things that you don't enjoy, and how can we find the people to fill in those
So
gaps
those
for you,
things, right. And I think the things you don't enjoy are just not your skill set. You just don't have a skill set, and you try,
Right.
but it's just not
That's
how
true.
you were made, and that's fine. It's okay. Don't fight it. Find the person that can do it. So
Yeah, that's so true. And thank you for saying that. Like, that's the reason why that I was struggling so much in my real estate business. It was all marketing and sales, and it was just, yes, I learned to be good at it, but it was something that I didn't enjoy. It was just not my nature.
right.
So
And that was the major part of your business.
right, exactly. It's all sales
Pretty
and
much.
marketing.
Yeah, right.
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 And also in an industry that I didn't fully enjoy either. So it took me 4 years to realize that. But then, like you said, it's, once you realize that for yourself, and that sense of freedom that you feel on the other side, that you wouldn't have been able to feel, to even imagine all that could happen once you gave yourself that commission to give yourself that freedom.
Right.
That you,
And Suzanne, I mean, you've given yourself freedom twice. You see the benefit of working for yourself. You just are finding a new way to do it,
Right.
which is so exciting
yeah, exactly.
and just
Yeah.
really, really cool to watch.
Right. And for you, when you were faced with the obstacles in the business, how did you overcome those challenges? I know you have the business experience, but some of the challenges that you faced would have been something that you've never seen before.
Sure.
How did you overcome those
They're
challenges?
brand new. One thing that was very helpful for me is I did join a mentorship group because I wanted to accelerate my learning and not reinvent the wheel. So that was very helpful. Also, a couple things, Suzanne. I did a lot of pre-learning, but what I've found best is just-in-time learning. Is when I'm presented with a new situation, then I'll pull out the videos related to that topic, or for me, I schedule a coaching call with my coaching group. But you have to put yourself, for me, I have to put myself in the situation to be pushed to learn
Yeah.
about it. So, that's, yeah.
Did you have any analysis paralysis before?
Oh, heck yeah. Yes.
How did you overcome that for
Yes.
yourself?
I guess I had a chip on my shoulder. I wanted so badly to be successful at what I was doing that I just had to push through it. If I never bought a deal because I wasn't sure if the numbers were exactly right and wasn't afraid to, worst case scenario, lose money on my first deal, that would be a failure. I mean, that's a total failure of not making the next move, right? Failing because you lose money on a deal is a different failure than not moving forward. So I needed to prove to whomever that I could make a go
Right.
at this. And now I've kind of lost that. But early on, it was probably my inner self. I had to prove that I had made the right decision. So it just made me move forward with my first deal and gain a little confidence. I remember the first signing the papers on the first house. My hands were shaking. And now you fire off offers like every day, all day, and just don't even think about it. You electronically sign things at a stoplight, but you don't get there until you take the first big step.
Yeah. The first one is always the most scary one.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. First call, first deal,
Yeah,
first business interaction, first networking event, right?
right.
And once you overcame it, it's like, did you have any feeling of, oh, that wasn't so bad after all?
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Always. I don't think I've ever regretted going to a networking event or doing a deal, even if I had a deal that didn't go the way I wanted it to, kind of like a wholesale situation. But I don't regret it because I learned, and I learned how much I appreciate my wholesalers and what they go through. And so I have no regrets. So.
It sounds to me that's your definition of how you see what other people may call as failure, but how would you describe that for yourself as how you see things that could fall apart?
A speaker, he said, never compare your beginning to someone else's middle. And I still feel like I'm at the beginning. I'm only 2.5 years into this career. I don't know what I don't know. And I could go to meetups or go to masterminds and listen to people who have been doing this 10, 20 years and feel inadequate. But when I get to talking to them and say, where were you at my point in time, they're like, about where you were. And that's how I have learned to measure success, is kind of looking backwards at where I've come in 2.5 years versus comparing myself to someone who's been doing the same type of work for 20 years. It's a daily reminder.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that's a very good point that you brought that up, because I never heard of it being defined that way, of how you define success is looking back instead of looking forward, because you're forward, you didn't get there yet, right?
No, and you're always going to set your bar higher and higher, and never celebrate when you get to that. And so it's always a, when I get here, I'll be happy or satisfied, and it's a formula for killing your joy.
Absolutely,
for sure.
So what do you enjoy now doing outside of your business? Now that you have all the time for yourself.
All that time for yourself. It's funny, I used to complain about being so busy going to kids' events, and now it's a joy to watch them do the things that they like to do. Yeah. I have some running partners, and we run very early in the morning. It's almost the best part of the day because we just share and talk and share struggles and support each other. So I enjoy exercising, running, and kids' events. It looks different than how my previous world was, but I'm pretty happy living in the moment right now.
Do you think this version of you being able to live in joy so much affected the relationships that you have with your children and your husband?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you can't rely on other people to make you happy. It has to come from within. But what's more important for me and my why is my kids seeing this in me, and then seeing me do something that was hard to do, and I hope I can inspire them to do things maybe outside the box, outside the definitions that we have in society of what they should be doing. And I hope my happiness kind of inspires them and helps them be happier kids too.
I'm sure you oftentimes, and I also have to remind myself that is people are always observing, especially your children around you, and the impact that we had created on them. Maybe even just that single phrase that you said by passing it. It was so natural for you to say that, but it made an impression on them and say, oh, that's how my mom sees it, right? And I always like to remind myself is the impact that we create on other people, we never fully understand how that impact, the extent of that impact that we were going to create. And so I'm sure your children seeing you and watching you walk this whole path that you have created for yourself, it would have made them change their own belief system of what they can achieve growing up, and to really carve out their life, to really create more joy for themselves.
Yeah, I believe you're right, for sure. I mean, no one really knows the full impact that they've had, positively or negatively. But me coming home complaining about work definitely couldn't have been a positive influence, right? But talking about the fun things that happened and focusing on positivity and being able to just sprinkle in those thoughts and asking them tell me one good thing that happened in your day, and just kind of helping them have a good mindset. It's got to help.
Yeah. What is your practice to keep yourself in this mindset?
Mantras, like I said, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. For me, probably the most important part of my day is my morning routine, and when do some devotionals, and a gratitude list for me is essential. And then more recently, I've started to do a nightly list of my wins for the day, because you tend to see what you look for, right? So if I'm looking for things to be grateful for, and if I'm looking for wins, I'm going to see those things. So if I start looking for problems and difficulties, that's what I'm going to see. A story once of two birds flying over a desert, of like a buzzard and a sparrow. And the buzzard was looking for carcass, and the sparrow was looking for a flower, and they both found what they looked for. So I feel like you need to look for the good things, and those are the things that you see.
And that's your recipe for joy that you feel, because joy is the choice that you made.
Absolutely.
To look out for, and that's what you get more of it, because you intentionally find them and look out for them.
Yeah. It's working for me.
Yeah. And I think that's how we connected, like, because I can feel your joy, I can feel your energy and how you exude, and when you walk in the room, it's that smile that you have and that warmth that you have when I talk to you. And it's not just the words that you say, but the body language that you and how you carry yourself into the room, and it all comes from the practice that you carry every single day for you, because this is naturally, I would say, I was never like this before, but it was just through repetition of overcoming the emotions, overcoming the obstacles, and then having more gratitude and reminding yourself every single day of all those. That's how you built the Heidi Prado that I see today, right now.
Right. And it's not fake it till you make it. I mean, it's authentic. I mean, it's authentic feeling. So it's kind of an essential part of my day to keep that up. Because I've talked to friends that have done similar things, and then they get out of the habit, and they're like, yeah, I'm starting to feel not so great, and it's because I've stopped doing the things that were working. So I'm going to keep it up.
Yeah. I always finish my podcast asking my guests the same question. For anybody who is listening to us, they hear that nudge and meant for something more. What is one recommendation you would give to them?
I'd say act on it. You could always go back, but don't put the regret of not listening to the nudge. Just swallow the toad and take the step of faith and act on it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Heidi. And if somebody wanted to look up for you or communicate with you, what's the best way to find you?
I'm on Facebook under Heidi Prado, or my email is heidi@webythelowcountry.com. Welcome to reach out.
Yeah, thank you. We'll leave those contacts in the show notes as well. And thank you so much, Heidi, for sharing your knowledge and your recipe for success of how you live in a joyful way. So thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And for you guys, we'll see you at our next episode. Until next time, we'll see you. Bye.